What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Putback with Ian Begley. I'm Chelsea Sherrod, joined by, of course, the one and only Ian Begley and the man of the people, the voice of the people, whatever you want to call him, Knicks Fan TV's CP The Fanchise, to react to the moves made at the 2025 NBA trade deadline that we are less than 15 minutes away from, guys. Before we get into it, though, everyone, a reminder to throw in your fan questions in the comments wherever you're watching. We will answer as many as we can at the end of the show during the talkback. All right, guys, let's get started with the baseline. So this trade deadline has been crazy, from Luka to Jimmy Butler, big stars getting moved around. We can talk about the Cavs as well and the moves that they're making soon. For the Knicks, however, the only trade was Jericho Sims. So it's part of a 3-team trade with Milwaukee and the Washington Wizards that included Chris Middleton and Kyle Kuzma. The Knicks are receiving DeLon Wright, draft rights to Hugo Besson, and cash considerations from the Bucks. According to a friend of the show, though, Yossi Goslin, the Knicks only saved about $5,000 financially in this transaction. Ian, I'll come to you first. What's your reaction on this trade?
Yeah, so Jericho Sims, pending free agent. I think he was open to a change of scenery. And Knicks, obviously, if you have a pending free agent, you're not planning to re-sign. You'd like to get something back. And so they got that in DeLon Wright, and Wright will stick for now. I don't know if he'll be in the rotation. I think it'll probably take an injury or two for him to get right in that rotation. But the interesting thing there is Landry Shamet not shooting the ball so great lately, so maybe that's something to keep an eye on. But this was a deal that you knew was coming. You just weren't sure when and where, but it was pretty much set that Sims and the Knicks were going to part ways almost, I think, a week before the trade deadline. So yeah, this was something that was in the works for a bit. Jericho Sims gets a new home. We'll see how he looks in Milwaukee.
Yeah, CP, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Ian. I think this was a separation that was the most likely, as Ian has reported weeks ago, and also, Sims's camp kind of looking for him to have a fresh start elsewhere, and so it was expected. I was just a little bit disappointed that the Knicks couldn't pry a wing out of this trade. However, with Jericho Sims at his $2 million contract, this is pretty much the 12th guy in the rotation. Really wasn't impactful in his few years here with the Knicks. So you can't really expect much in return. With DeLon Wright, it's funny. We laud the guys who are close to a 50, 40, 90 slash line. Well, you can slash that in half for DeLon Wright because he's been bricking for this entire season. However, he is a guy at 6'5" who can defend. He's been known for his steals, deflections, and on the defensive side of the ball. And so maybe a fresh start for him with new teammates and newfound chemistry would bode well for him. Landry Shamet has seemingly found his way out of the rotation right now. And so DeLon Wright could be a guy when the Knicks make this playoff push. Last year, the back end of that rotation after the Knicks were injury depleted was Daquan Jeffries, Diakite. So maybe you have to insert a DeLon Wright in a break glass situation, a guy who has playoff experience, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, definitely. Good points made by UCP. Jonas Valanciunas was a name that, Ian, you've mentioned in connection with the Knicks a bunch during this trade deadline. He ended up getting dealt to the Kings for CD Sissoko and 2 future second rounders. Do you think that the Knicks should have been more aggressive here, Ian?
No, I think it was just about Mitchell Robinson there, right? Like if they didn't have confidence in Mitchell Robinson and moving forward this season with Mitchell Robinson, then they were going to go after Jonas Valanciunas. But clearly, with everything that we've seen, I don't see a Mitchell Robinson deal happening in the next 8 minutes. We've been talking about it for a couple of days now. So because of that, there was no need for them to go after Valanciunas, who's under contract for a couple of years after this one. So I thought that what happened there was appropriate given their approach on Robinson.
Yeah, CP, I kind of want to get your thoughts too, because a lot of people thought that once, the news came out about Mitch being cleared for contact, that he could have been a potential, trade chip for them to use. Do you think that the Knicks should have been more aggressive in potentially getting Valanciunas to come on board?
No, to be honest, I'd rather them stand pat with Mitch and see what he can provide them for the second half of the season and beyond. He's a guy that can help fill a void for the Knicks, which is additional front court defense as well as rebounding. And that is Mitchell Robinson's strengths when he is healthy. And so I didn't believe that the Knicks should have went in and parted with not only Mitchell Robinson, but maybe even draft capital in terms of second round picks that they can ill afford to really part with, given their depleted war chest. And so I was with the stance that they should wait, see if Mitch is going to be healthy and be able to return, and then see where it goes from there. I wasn't as pressed to acquire Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah. All right. 6 minutes left until the deadline hits. Let's go around the league a little bit. One of the biggest trades that we've seen so far has been the Jimmy Butler trade, or, Miami sending him to Golden State. The saga, we've been talking about it obviously for the past couple of months. There were some rumors that Kevin Durant could potentially go to Golden State, but Jimmy Butler is there now. This brings Andrew Wiggins to the Eastern Conference. CP, on Twitter, you tweeted, "I like it." Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, from a Golden State standpoint, Stephen Curry, he had went to management and said, hey, don't overextend yourself here to extend this championship window. And so I believe where they were with Andrew Wiggins and the young players, they weren't going to be in position to contend in the Western Conference. And so if they're going to go forward with Stephen Curry as his contract nears expiration, and they're going to go forward with Draymond Green, then I thought the Butler deal was a good deal for them to roll the dice and see what happens there. They didn't have to part with Kuminga or Trace Jackson Davis or Pods. And so now they have these guys. Yes, the spacing might get a little bit difficult. Yes, they are aging, but hey, leave it to Steve Kerr and see what can happen there. But, the extension for Jimmy Butler was quite large. I mean, 2 years, $121 million, but that's a price you have to pay in this era of the market. And so Miami's certainly gotten stronger. They've gotten more depth. They also traded for Davion Mitchell in a separate trade with the Raptors. And so defensively, I think they're going to be stout, but it was time for both sides to have a divorce there. And then on top of that, once the Phoenix trade kind of bottomed out in terms of their pursuit of Jimmy Butler, I thought that Golden State was going to be back in the driver's seat, and they went and pulled the trigger.
Yeah, definitely did. Ian, what do you think about this trade, Jimmy Butler going to Golden State? How much better did the Warriors get, so to speak, with acquiring him?
They got better, I think, because Butler's going to be motivated. He was looking to get paid, and he did get paid. And so I do think that they did get better. But from a Knick perspective, Miami, what are they going to look like now with Wiggins? And I assume they keep Kyle Anderson. So that's where I go with this trade is what does Miami look like? They had a disengaged Butler. Now they'll have, two players who we assume will be very engaged here. And so does that improve them? Does Tyler Hero, take another step now that Jimmy's fully out the door? That's what I'm looking at if I'm the Knicks in the wake of that Butler deal.
Yeah, we do have some breaking news. This is coming from Shams Charania. The Grizzlies are trading Marcus Smart, veteran guard, in a 2025 first rounder to the Wizards in a multi-team trade that sends 2 second rounders to Memphis. Memphis creates more roster flexibility with this move. Ian, what's your initial reaction to this news?
I'm so sorry. I just had to answer a text here. That was Marcus Smart. And so a lot of teams had contacted the Grizzlies on Smart. They've been in touch with a lot of teams. I think part of this was with Smart under contract for next year. The Grizzlies, they want to re-sign Santi Aldama, and they have Jaren Jackson Jr. contract extension coming up here. He'll be eligible this summer. So I think that was part of the motivation there in Memphis, was to try to get off that last year in Marcus Smart's deal. So they did get that done. And I'm sorry. And yeah, that was a piece of business that they were looking to do ahead of the deadline. Obviously, they get it in right before the deadline hits.
Yeah, CP, what do you think, acquiring a veteran guard like Marcus Smart does for a team like the Wizards? Obviously, there's a lot of moves being made, but Marcus Smart is, he's very experienced. He, is very lively. He definitely likes to speak his mind. He's a dog. What do you think that could bring to Washington?
Yeah, just having an adult in the room, I think, can certainly help for a young player like an Alex Sarr, the number 2 pick. The Wizards, the worst team in the league. Hey, maybe they go out and get in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. We'll see what the results are of the NBA draft lottery. So I think having a guy there who is battle tested, has multiple years of playoff experience, and so if the Wizards do choose to keep a Marcus Smart, he can kind of help be that extension of the coach and kind of get that locker room together, because you don't want to have a roster just full of young players who were picking up losing habits. You want a guy who has won before and a guy that can get these guys together. They do have some good young players. I like Koulibaly. I like Alex Sarr. The Kispert, I like him coming off of the bench for that team. And so they do have some good young players. They just need to round that out with some vets to make that next push. You take a look at what the Houston Rockets have done this year under the leadership of Ime Udoka. This was a roster full of lottery talent, but they go out there, they get a Fred VanVleet, they get a Jeff Green, they get Dylan Brooks, and now this team is really starting to emerge as a respectable conference contender.
Yeah, for sure. All right, with less than a minute left until the trade deadline, Ian just tweeted that the Knicks have nothing in the works and are done for the day. CP, is there anything that you wish, or any move that you wish that the Knicks would have made before the deadline?
Yeah, as I said, if they could have pulled a rabbit out of the hat in a Sims deal, one of the deals that everybody had liked, just from a prospect standpoint, was maybe going after Javonte Green from the Pelicans, if that was even an option available to the Knicks. I think the Knicks they need a wing to go into the second half of the season and beyond. OG Anunoby, I believe that the Knicks should look into putting him on some sort of limits restriction to make sure that he is as fresh as possible for the playoffs. You want the dog ready to go in April and beyond. And so I think getting a wing in here who can log minutes, who can play tough, physical defense would really bode well for the Knicks, but they were unable to do so. But also I think Knicks fans have to understand that the expectations as it related to making a move at the deadline were very low. The Knicks don't have much assets to work with. And so it may take another offseason cycle for this team. Maybe they get more money in terms of an exception that they can sign a better veteran. Maybe they pull a rabbit out of the hat with the second round pick that they have. I believe that belonged to the Detroit Pistons in the draft, and they can get a big man or a wing there. So it's going to take a little bit more time for this Knicks to round out their depth. So now maybe they look to the buyout market. Is it a Torrey Craig? Is it a TJ Warren, a Chuma Okeke from Westchester? We'll have to wait and see there.
Yeah, I know they're hoping that they're not without OG Anunoby for an extended amount of time. I did mention Kevin Durant a little bit ago. Ian, I just want to get some more from you on this. I know that, KD didn't request a trade, but there obviously were the rumors of a potential return to Golden State that he shut down. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I was told that the Mavericks were very aggressive as recently as Wednesday, trying to find other teams to get involved so they can make the math work and bring Kevin Durant to Dallas. Obviously, nothing coming to fruition there. And then, there was a moment there where it looked like maybe it was going to be Durant for Butler, but Miami, I was told, couldn't get to where the Phoenix Suns wanted as far as a package to return Durant. And it's just, you don't see this a lot, right? Where the star player, unless he asks for a trade, is being openly discussed in trade. So look, depending on what happens with Phoenix the rest of the way, if they don't reach their ultimate goal here, you have to assume that Durant's going to be popping up again in talks in the offseason. So just fascinating week here with Kevin Durant and the Suns.
Yeah, absolutely. For now, he stays in Phoenix. Okay, so the trade deadline has officially hit. We are just going to continue to talk about some of the deals and trades that have happened today. One of these deals, though, that I think has kind of put things into perspective for us, especially as we talk about the Eastern Conference, is the trade between Atlanta and Cleveland. So the Hawks trading DeAndre Hunter to the Cavaliers for Karis LeVert, George Niang's 3 second-rounders and 2 pick swaps. The Hawks also traded Cody Zeller to Houston. CP, on Twitter, you call this a monster move. I mean, they are loading up. They're the number 1 team in the East, but now they add Hunter into the mix. What else can you tell us about your thoughts on this deal?
Yeah, major move by Kobe Altman and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Congratulations to them. They see that even and as the number one seed in the East, you cannot rest on your laurels. They've been battling with Boston now 3 games, and they're not comfortable that they can beat this Boston team. And so they go out there, they get a premier two-way wing in DeAndre Hunter, who's having the best season of his career, coming off the bench for the Atlanta Hawks. 19 points per game, shooting close to 40% from 3 on 3.5 attempts. He adds to their size. He can play physical. If he has to get switched out on a Kristaps Porzingis, I think the Cleveland Cavaliers like how they can match up there, and they're going to be strong. This is a deep Cleveland Cavaliers team led by that dynamo backcourt in Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. Evan Mobley is taking a step up. Jared Allen has always been steady, and so Cleveland just got much more lethal, and that is going to be a problem for the Knicks. DeAndre Hunter has been a career Knick killer, and so, hey, Cleveland has just gotten better. This was a tremendous trade for them.
Yeah, Hunter, 3-and-D wing. He's averaging like 19 points per game, about 4 rebounds per game, 27 years old, a really great pickup for them. Ian, how do you think this trade changes the state of the Eastern Conference?
This was big for Cleveland. Hunter playing really well this year. It seemed to really come into his own, and he did well against the Knicks when they played him. And so you're looking at a Cavs team that was strong. It just gets stronger. You're swapping out Niang and LeVert for Hunter, and I think that's a big plus there. And the interesting thing to me here is Donovan Mitchell and Georges Niang are close friends. I think they've known each other since high school. And so I was just surprised that Niang ended up in this deal. But hey, when you're trying to win a championship, friendships take a back seat, right? Because this was a big move for the Cavs. And if I'm the Celtics, if I'm the Knicks, I'm looking at that one and saying, yeah, this team ahead of us really got better.
Yeah, a huge move for them for sure. Definitely contenders in their own right. Okay, so I'm just going to run through a few more trades that have happened. I just want to get your thoughts and see which one of these or any of these stand out to you guys. So a couple of last minutes since we started, these trades have happened. The Clippers traded Terrence Mann and Bones Highland to the Hawks for Bogdan Bogdanovic and 3 second-round picks. The Clippers also trading Kevin Porter Jr. to the Bucks for Marjon Beauchamp. The Hawks trading Cody Zeller and Houston's 2028 second-round pick to the Rockets, and Detroit acquiring Dennis Schroeder from the Jazz. The Pacers also trading James Wiseman and cash considerations to Toronto. So CP, those trades that I just listed, if you want me to go over them again, I can. Yeah. Do any of those stand out to you?
The Clippers acquisition of Bogdanovic for sure. You add wing depth to a Clippers team that has been playing strong defensively. The claw Kawhi Leonard has come back, so he's going to elevate that team. James Harden also playing at a high level, and the Clippers look like a really stout team in the West. That could be a sleeper team. We always going to think about, sure, the Lakers and OKC, obviously, but let's not sleep on the Clippers with this acquisition. Bogdanovic is a guy who you can get after it on the defensive end. He's a scrappy player. Offensively, he's capable, good passer, good shooter as well. And so that's a good move for them. Terrence Mann, that seemed to be a guy who from last year wasn't really finding a solid fit there with the Clipper team. So it seemed like he was almost on his way out. And, Bones Highland is a guy who I think he's going to be a career journeyman and ultimately out the league eventually. And so that wasn't a big loss for the Clippers. You have Norman Powell, who was playing at an all-star level. So I think they just got stronger with this Bogdanovic trade. That was a good trade for them.
Yeah, Bogdanovic, when he gets going from 3, he can.
I'm sorry. I just heard CP Barry Bones Highland, and he's coming in hot, and I like it.
CP's ready today. CP is on one today.
Trade deadline, man. We're ready to go.
The beard is strong. The takes are strong. Let's go.
Let's go, man.
Ian, do any of those trades that have happened over the last, few minutes today, do any of those stand out to you?
I just look at Atlanta big picture, right? Clearly, they had no interest in paying the tax with this team. And I wonder what's next there. Trae Young, his name has been floated around in, past off seasons. And are they fully committed to Young moving forward here? I know they're committed to Jalen Johnson. They love him. But the Young, I have a questions about. So that's, to me, the bigger story here moving forward is, what does this mean for the offseason for Atlanta? And obviously, I agree with CP. Bogdanovich to the Clippers, that was a tremendous acquisition.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's get to the talk back. So we're going to answer some Knicks fan questions from YouTube now that the deadline has hit. This one is from John GNY from YouTube to Ian and CP. Ian, we'll come to you first. Are there any targets for buyouts after the deadline?
Yeah, I want to note first here on the buyouts, the Knicks, they cannot sign a player who was making $12.8 million or more with their previous salary because they're a first apron team. So, a guy like Marcus Smart, if he were to get waived by the Wizards, the Knicks do not have the ability to sign him. The one thing that I'm keeping an eye on with that 15th roster spot, March 1, I think, is the date where the Knicks will have enough room to fit a prorated veterans minimum salary into that under that second apron. And I know that TJ Warren had impressed them in camp, and I think he's continued to impress them by going down to Westchester and being with those young guys in the G League and really being a servant to them, as Josh Hart has said that he is to these starters. I mean, to have a veteran down there is so valuable. So I would keep an eye there in terms of where they might look on the buyout market. I don't know. Let's see who gets bought out. Let's see. I mean, I don't know what the Nets are going to do with Ben Simmons, but I don't think he would be a target for the Knicks. But let's see. Let's let the market materialize first. And I really do think that TJ Warren will get some at least consideration for that last spot.
Yeah. CP, how about you? Are there any targets on, the front of your mind?
For sure. And Chicago had gotten rid of Torrey Craig earlier this week. He's a guy up on my list. TJ Warren, as Ian said, Chuma Okeke as well. Those two guys in Westchester, I think, would be good additions to this team, especially if they're already running a similar system down there. Those are guys that you can plug right in. And as I said earlier at the top of the show, the Knicks have to be very, very careful if and when OG Anunoby does come back in the second half of the season. You can't have him out there logging those major minutes. I do not think he can handle the load on a consistent night. And so they're going to need a guy who can handle some minutes and give him a spell so that he can be ready for April. That's when you want OG Anunoby at his best. And so they need to tread carefully there. But the wing position has to be a priority if they can afford it on the buyout market.
Yeah, they need some added depth for sure. CP, I'm going to come back to you with this question. This one's from Richard Miranda from YouTube. Richard says, is DeLon Wright going to get minutes right off the bat? What do you think?
Well, the way Landry Shamet is playing right now, certainly possible. But, the Knicks rotation right now coming off the bench until Mitchell Robinson gets back, it's going to be Precious Achiuwa. It's going to be Deuce McBride. It's going to be Cam Payne and Huckamania. Ariel Hukporti, he's gotten the stamp from Jimmy D. He's gotten the stamp from the boss. He's going to be logging minutes now that the simulation has packed his bags. So I think those are the guys that you're going to be looking at. It's going to be a 9-man rotation, but if needed, if they needed a guy like a DeLon Wright to get out there and, pester the opposing guards, I don't see why, he may get 5 minutes. So it's a couple minutes a night here, but, Shamet has certainly not been holding up his end of the bargain. I like his energy. He plays good defense. He can scrap, but they also need him to shoot. He's brought in here to be a flamethrower, and he hasn't been able to hit anything right now. So it's going to be interesting to see there.
Yeah. Wait, is Huckamania a thing?
Oh, it's definitely a thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I've kind of been in UConn world lately, so
yes.
I didn't know that was a thing, but I like it. That's good.
Huckamania is a thing amongst the fan base. The merch at KnicksFanTV.com is flying off the shelves. We are sold out.
Yes.
Merch.
Yeah, it's all out, man. So shout out to Ariel Hukporti, man, playing well.
You know where to find
playing
it.
Meaningful minutes.
Yeah.
Right, Ian. Always got a plug, I appreciate it. I respect it, CP. Ian, coming to you with this question. Tyler Delp from YouTube says, what was the craziest Knicks trade deadline deal you remember?
I mean, the Carmelo one was obviously huge. That was a monster. And I think I was just started kind of covering the NBA regularly at that time. And it was speculated on for months. I don't think it happened right at the deadline, but it was a major, major, major deal. And I just remember the excitement in New York with that one and just kind of the the idea that he was going to join up with Amari Stoudemire and where the Knicks going to go from here. You know, could they contend for a title? Obviously, we all know how it played out, but I just remember at that time the excitement in the air when that trade got finalized, and in the aftermath of it, it was a fun time.
That's a good one. Another deal that has been very exciting and there's a lot of excitement around was the trade for Mikal Bridges. Months later, guys, when Bridges came from the Nets to the Knicks to join some of his Villanova teammates, how do you think the Bridges trade looks in your opinion? This question is from RJ from YouTube. I'll start with you, CP. What do you think about the trade so far?
Well, he's certainly settled in so far. It took him a little bit of while to get into a cruising altitude, if you will, earlier this season, getting adjusted to his new role defensively, offensively. He was a bit inconsistent, but now he's been a lot more consistent, and he's been giving this team a big lift, especially on the defensive end, where he's going to be critical for this team. Just staying attached to the ball handlers, his help defense has been much better, and then his three-point accuracy, especially from the corners, has been league leading. And so in terms of his fit with the team, he's fit in seamlessly, but you're hearing some smatters of not buyer's remorse amongst the fan base. That might be a little too strong, but especially when you consider the cost, the 5 first-round picks, and now you're seeing what some of these NBA stars around this trade deadline have been going for. The prospect of a Kevin Durant being available, Knicks fans are a little bit leery here. Hey, even the DeAndre Hunter deal just now. And so Knicks fans are a little bit on edge, given that the Knicks war chest has been severely depleted. And so it's going to be a lot of pressure now on this team and Mikal Bridges to deliver, to take this team up over the hump. Maybe not this year, but certainly next year and beyond. There's going to be a lot of pressure here.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think, Ian?
I think, especially with OG Anunoby sidelined right now, I'm looking at Mikal Bridges to not pick up some slack, but to be who he is and impact winning. And with Anunoby out, they need everybody to step up. But I'm looking at Bridges there, and I think he's handled things pretty well in terms of the questions, the criticism. He's come on very consistently over the past few weeks after that rocky start. And I do think that, by and large, you look at the picks, you look at what Luka Doncic got traded for pick-wise, obviously Anthony Davis in that deal, and then you kind of look sideways at the picks the Knicks gave Bridges. But one thing here is his fit in the room, his fit with this roster mattered. It's not like you're bringing in a stranger to the locker room and he has to adapt to everybody's personality. The chemistry was already there with certain guys. And so that to me matters. And I do think that, as a piece on this roster, he makes a lot of sense. And he's going to be key for them when they look at the Bostons and other teams with multiple wings. When you have to shut those guys down over a 7-game series, I think that's really where you're going to see Bridges' value, OG Anunoby's value.
Yeah, chemistry matters for sure. And I think he's in the right spot. Okay, so let's get into what we learned presented by Binghamton University. Binghamton University was named the top school in the SUNY system, according to recent rankings from the Wall Street Journal and Forbes. Visit binghamton.edu for more. So 5 years ago today, the first rumor surfaced that the Knicks plan to hire Leon Rose as their new president, replacing Steve Mills and altering the future of the franchise. So evaluating the last 5 years and the job of Leon Rose so far, Leon inherited this starting five: Elfrid Payton, Frank Ntilikina, Reggie Bullock, Julius Randle, Taj Gibson. So with another trade deadline passed, Ian, I'll start with you. How are you feeling about Leon right now?
I mean, look, there is no question that he has done the best job of any Knick executive, including Glenn Grunwald, who did well, and Donnie Walsh, who did well, over the last 25 plus years. There's no question. And that's, an objective statement because of what he inherited. And I think, his patience, like I criticized him for not doing anything after a few drafts, at a few trade deadlines. But it's clear that he had a vision. And, just talk about Jalen Brunson alone, right? He traded off veterans that he had just signed the summer before in order to create the cap space to offer Jalen Brunson a deal that maybe no other team was going to offer him. Maybe not the Mavericks were even going to offer him a deal that was mocked in some corners that summer. And that was really an all-in moment for Leon Rose, because if things had gone sideways, his big acquisition didn't work out, I think he'd be gone. And I think Tom Thibodeau would be gone, and it would be a new regime in here, because that's kind of where he was hanging his hat. And we all know that Jalen Brunson's been better than anybody's expectations, probably outside of himself and his parents. And that move alone just really turned this franchise around in a big way. So, yeah, I don't think you can overstate how well Leon Rose has done this job the past couple of years. Obviously, still work to be done. The roster, backup center, he left them kind of naked there, so to speak. But by and large, yeah, very strong job so far.
Yeah. What do you think, CP?
Yeah, 5 years goes by so fast. And I remember during the acquisition, I was a little bit hesitant at first because, James Dolan's history in hiring these executives just has not panned out. And so I was wondering, like, oh, man, are they trying to just be a copycat of the Warriors? Yes, Bob Myers, coming from the agency side, he had a tremendous amount of success. But is this going to work here? Leon Rose, he has all these relationships. Who is the big player, big splash that they're going to make? And also all the rumors about CAA and during the Carmelo era and their influence, is this going to end badly? But over the course of the 5 years, we've seen a diligent process by Leon Rose. He deserves a lot of credit for putting a team together of trusted advisors, of specialists. Brock Aller, his capologist, Worldwide West. He brings in Gerson Rosas, who has the relationships around the NBA and obviously was instrumental in bringing Karl Anthony Towns here. There's been a process, and he's been very, very good in terms of sticking to it. As Ian said, the Jalen Brunson signing, look, a lot of luck has to play into it. You have to thank Dallas for undervaluing Brunson, but for Leon Rose to go in there and bring his godson in here, who has turned into a superstar on the biggest stage, that was a major coup for the Rose regime. Chelsea, you asked Ian what was the biggest trade deadline trade that he remembers during his time covering the team. I have to say, hey, let's go back a couple of years to the Josh Hart acquisition at the trade deadline. The year before that, or 2 years before that, it was acquiring Derrick Rose with Dennis Smith Jr. and the second-round pick. And Derrick Rose becomes a vital piece to the Knicks' first playoff run in 8 years. And so he's done a good job in making deals on the margins. They've done a good job in terms of managing the cap. I think they've managed their assets well. We'll see what happens with this Mikal Bridges trade. But overall, I've been saying this for maybe the past 2 years now. It's not easy the way that the Knicks have flipped this thing to turn into a true contender. A lot of teams, they go through the draft. Golden State, Denver, the Celtics with Tatum and Brown. A lot of it is through the draft where you're getting these premier lottery picks. But for the Knicks, they've had to flip their draft picks. They've had to go in the free agency on the margins and put this thing together. And so far, I think they should be commended for it. They've done a great job.
Absolutely. And I mean, his process has paid dividends, even if you look at where the fan base is at this point, too. I think everyone's in a much better place. This team is much more exciting to watch. Yeah. They're gritty. They play all 48 minutes of each game. And so, yes, a big testament to what Leon has done so far. Ian, how will the Knicks be evaluating this roster currently for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I want to get right into that, Chelsea. But first, CP, when is your next show?
My next show, we will cover the entire NBA trade deadline at 5 p.m. tonight on Knicks Fan TV as well as the NBA Report. So we'll be on at 5 o'clock tonight.
Any watch parties coming up?
Watch parties, yes. Knicks versus Celtics this Saturday at Clinton Hall 36, and the doors will open at 7 p.m. Free for all. They can RSVP at KnicksFanTV.com.
There you go. Just wanted to let the people know.
Love the plugs.
Appreciate it.
Sure if you're watching this, you're probably going to go watch CP anyway, but just wanted to let the people know. Chelsea, obviously, this team is built to compete for a top spot in the NBA. I want to say that it kind of looks like a second round and out team right now, just based on Boston and Cleveland. And if that's where it ends and, they're competitive in that second round, but they can't get over the hump, I think that probably everything stands pat and everybody's content to move forward with the group that they have, because the core of these guys are all under contract for at least the next 2 years, I think. And then you'll have Bridges, who's going to extend. So I think that's kind of where it is. But if you lose and you don't look good, let's say you lose in the second round and you don't look good, I really don't think that the Knicks would be, averse to reshaping the roster via trade. And so I think that, yes, it certainly looks like things are kind of set in stone, that their chips are all on the table in terms of what they've done with the Bridges trade, the Towns trade. But I do think that, if the results are not there this year, or let's say next year, I don't think they'd be averse to shaking up the roster via trade. But let's see how things play out the rest of this season first before we talk about 2025 offseason.
Yeah. And speaking of things playing out the rest of the season, Knicks Celtics on Saturday, just like you both mentioned. Make sure you check out CP's watch party. New York sits 2 games back of the Celtics. CP, with all the shakeups in the East, we talked about the Cavs deal with DeAndre Hunter. Is Boston the biggest threat, or do you think it is the Cavaliers?
Well, I'm always a guy that's going to give the champs the benefit of the doubt until they prove otherwise. And so I still think Boston is going to deserve their respect. They've taken a step back this year. They're not the powerhouse that they were last year. They've had some dips. They've had some battles with inconsistency. But Joe Mazzulla was on the record a few weeks ago saying, hey, they are embracing that. They're embracing that challenge, and they want to prove the doubters wrong. And so until they are eliminated, I'm still going to lean towards the Boston Celtics. But hey, Cleveland, as I said, with this DeAndre Hunter pickup, they are a powerhouse right now. And I have to give the Cleveland Cavaliers a lot of credit, because they're another team who, just like Tatum and Brown, the naysayers were saying, split up Darius Garland, split up Donovan Mitchell. And instead of their egos splitting them apart, they came together this offseason to hash out their differences. I think that's a big reason why this team is where they are right now at 41-10. These guys are on the same page. Evan Mobley is also taking a step up, and their depth has been vastly improved. And give credit, Kenny Atkinson has been a great coach for them. So Cleveland is certainly going to be deserving of their respect. They're going to be tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Ian, who do you think it is? Who do you think the biggest threat is? Is it the Celtics or is it the Cavaliers?
I'm going to say the Celtics, because they've done it together and pretty much the whole group back. I think you're seeing sometimes like a hangover, a championship hangover, a malaise from the group. But I think once it's time to get going, once the lights are on, I do think they'll be very, very formidable if they're healthy. But that's really like you're picking between 2 excellent teams. So, those top 2 are going to be really tough. The Knicks are going to obviously face one of them. If they get to the second round, they're not going to be able to avoid them. So that's going to be where the big test is. I do have bad news for UCP. ESPN is reporting that Shuma Keki signed a 10-day with the Sixers. So you're going to have to cross your guy off the list, it seems like, for that 15th roster spot.
That's one guy off the list. We have about less than a month to go. Let's see if TJ Warren can hang on or if Torrey Craig is still available. But Chuma Okeke going to the Pacers. Wow.
Sixers.
Oh, Sixers. Sorry, Sixers.
Sixers. Yep. Sixers. Yep.
Interesting.
Thanks for dropping that news, Ian. All right, let's wrap up things now. I'd love to get both of your final thoughts just on the trade deadline, on some of the moves that we've seen, big or small. CP, I'll come to you first. What are your final thoughts on the trade deadline as a whole?
I mean, Dallas really setting this off with a blockbuster and Nico Harrison. I still can't. I mean, that trade had me up for like a couple of days trying to figure out what the end game is here. I mean, Ian, I called our guy Derek Harper. I said, Harp, we got to talk. I called him at like 9:00 that morning. I said, what is going on down there? Because I just could not understand why Dallas was so motivated to trade Luka Doncic. They were motivated. They couldn't even get 2 first-round picks from the Lakers. And in both reports, I know the Athletic, our guy Fred Katz covered it well, and I forgot the Kirk Goldsberry from The Ringer had both reported that Pelinka pushed back on giving up the second first-round pick because he was scared that Luka Doncic wouldn't re-sign with the Lakers. And Nico Harrison bought that and said, let's do it anyway. There's way more to the story that we're missing here with this trade. And by not giving up that second first-round pick, the Lakers going out and getting Mark Williams from the Hornets was a big deal. That's a fantastic trade for them at the trade deadline. So I think they're one of the big winners here.
Yeah, they wanted their big man and they got him. Ian, what are your final thoughts?
CP, I think, hit it on the head with the Lakers stuff. That trade obviously is going to reverberate around the NBA for years to come. But I'm looking at something that happened today from a Knicks perspective with that Cleveland trade. And, you don't want to lose Karis LeVert. You don't want to lose Niang. But to get a player back in Hunter, who, again, having a very good season, all set by the time April rolls around. I mean, that's a big-time addition for a team that was obviously already rolling. And to me, if you're looking at it from a Knicks perspective, you start there because, that's the team that you're going to be chasing. Now, but with the Knicks, to me, it all started with Mitchell Robinson and the idea that, if they weren't confident in where he was, maybe they'd have to move on or look elsewhere. And so, we've learned that they are confident in Robinson for this run here. Exactly when he will be back, we'll find out more details as they're available. Still has some hurdles to clear in practice. I expect that we'll be up there at practice tomorrow, so we'll have more information then. But he'll be back on the floor at some point if things go smoothly, and that's what the Knicks are banking on here, a healthy Mitchell Robinson. And to me, that's the X factor for this season and the postseason is where can he be, what can he do for you?
Yeah, definitely can be a determining factor for sure. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us on the Putback with Ian Begley. The next show is Thursday, February 13th at 1 p.m. Make sure you all are there. For Ian Begley, CP The Fanchise, I'm Chelsea Sherrod. Thank you so much for watching our trade deadline special, and we will see you guys on Thursday.